release the grooming gang files, release the Starmer files. We had his name on a document. This is what he said. He told us he took the Rochdale file. That means you've got to own what you did to Amber and you've got to own what you did to Ruby. He has to take the stand. He has to be a witness. Without her knowledge or consent, the police go to the abortion clinic, take the fetus and put it in a freezer.
Well, surely they're going to charge him with rape.
They charged him with conspiracy to commit sexual activity with a child. Again, we go back, Mr. Starmer, I oversaw the decisions. I took the file. We walked through decision making start to finish. He's got to own that. We'll leave no stone unturned. I'm sorry, lads, we're the ones that leave no stone unturned. You're the ones that would like to keep all that muck underneath and undisturbed.
So number 10, I mean, they fought you hard with the first investigation.
Yeah.
How have they responded now?
Well, I think what is incredibly telling was...
Zach, last time you were on this show, you promised us you would keep on digging. So, what have you found out?
Well, JJ, something pretty explosive. Look, the last time that I was on here, we were digging into Starmer and grooming gangs, and I told you, we were going to keep going, and it felt like there was something more there. Well, I did, and what I found was, when I was working on the Pedo Asbo story, I started going through all of Starmer's statements relating to grooming gangs and what he was saying that he had personally done on it. And I noticed something in there, which was he was talking specifically about the Rochdale case, which is, it's the first grooming gangs prosecution, the first of what turned out to be many. And he was saying some quite specific stuff around this. So he was saying, I asked for the Rochdale file, I took the file, I oversaw the decisions, and then I went back and I looked at what he'd said at the time, and he'd said similar things. He'd said, I oversaw, we walked through the decisions from start to finish. So the person who knows the Rochdale case better than anyone else really is Maggie Oliver. Uh-huh. And so I called up Maggie and I said, this is what we've found about Starmer, and she then just walked me through what some of those decisions were. And I mean, there's a lot of stuff that went on that with the case, but there were two things that really stood out. The first was, and this was a CPS decision, so this wasn't the police or anything. The CPS had, they'd messed up not prosecuting this gang back in 2008. And then it had been reinvestigated and they're going, okay, we're going to bring the case again. And part of the way that they did it was they took 3 girls that they wanted to be involved in it. It's what then spawned the BBC drama, 3 girls. They were Holly, Ruby and Amber. Mm-hmm. Now, Holly was she came from a more conventional background. She was the one that the case was really built around. And Ruby and Amber, it was quite a bit more chaotic. Amber had, during the original investigation, been accused of being part of the gang. She was arrested and they were suggesting that she'd been procuring girls for the gang. Okay. But when they'd gone again and said, all right, we're going to do this properly, they'd said, no, absolutely, Amber was a victim. Mm-hmm. And they got Maggie to convince her to sit there and give hours and hours of evidence to pick guys out from a lineup, really traumatizing stuff. CPS get a hold of the case, and all of this effort that they've been putting into Amber, suddenly it goes cold. Now, we know why it goes cold, because there was a review that was done into all the decisions around this that was commissioned by Andy Burnham. And essentially what happened was the CPS went, the list that Amber's give us is pretty big and it's become a massive investigation. We want to get this to trial a little bit quicker. So, we don't have the resources to really do this thing properly. So Amber, after going through all of that, after she didn't want to speak to the police, she didn't want to be a witness, she then gets dropped. And they go forward with Ruby and they go forward with Holly. Now, as they're getting close to trial, they're going over the evidence and they go, oof, you know what? That witness statement that we had from Amber, we kind of need that to tie all these things together and to nail these guys. So what they did was, without arresting her, without cautioning her, without even telling her, they presented those witness statements at trial as portraying her as being part of the gang, portraying her as being a teenage pimp. So they essentially they flipped a witness to becoming a paedophile, a perpetrator, without her knowledge, consent, or even legal due process.
Yeah.
Huge, terrible scandal that independent review I mentioned, Andy Burnham, that they actually said that what the CPS had done was deplorable further abuse of Amber. What they did because, the consequences, like, you can have something and someone's anonymised. Rochdale or Hayward, which is where it took place, is not a very big town.
Yeah.
It gets mentioned, and she was having her address put up on Facebook. Someone threatened to firebomb her house. And worst, social services were trying to take her kids off her because of all of this that the CPS had done. So there we go. That's the kind of decision number one, that if Mr. Starmer has walked through the decision making from start to finish, if he's overseen the decision, if he's asked for the file, he's approved that. And we now have independent review describing that as deplorable further abuse. I mean, it absolutely, it said that they didn't show any care for what they were doing. The second one, and I'll run through it briefly because I've been rambling on a little bit, but the other one was her sister Ruby had been abused by this gang from the age of 12 to 15. We're talking 5 days a week, every single day. When she's 13, a member of the gang, Adil Khan, gets her pregnant. She goes for a termination.
As a 13-year-old?
As a 13-year-old. It gets worse. She goes for the termination. Without her knowledge or consent, the police go to the abortion clinic, take the fetus, and put it in a freezer. Years later, when they're doing... So, remember I said that it was the initial investigation that they didn't go forward with. Years later, when they're going back to it, one of the things that they get Maggie to do is like, oh, can you go to Ruby, tell her, by the way, we've got this fetus that you don't know about, and can you tell her, can we test it for DNA? Right?
Oh, my gosh.
Maggie convinces Ruby. Again, that's not an easy process because highly traumatized, and you're also, that is just a horrific thing to happen.
Yeah.
So she convinces her, they do the DNA, it comes up, Adil Khan is the father. They go to trial. What do you think they charged him with?
Well, surely they're going to charge him with rape, paedophilia, there's lots of different sexual assault.
They charged him with conspiracy to commit sexual activity with a child.
Why didn't they charge him for rape?
That's the question. So, when I sat down with Maggie, I said, look, I'm not a police officer, I'm not a lawyer, but doesn't that seem like pretty obvious? And pretty much everyone has the same reaction that you did, which is, that seems open and shut.
Yeah.
Now, what I'll add in is a couple of other factors she wasn't just 13, she had special needs. She went to a special needs school she had testified that she was blind drunk most of the time. As Maggie puts it, there was stronger evidence than there are in 90% of the rape cases that you have, yet they chose to charge him with conspiracy. Again, we go back, Mr. Starmer, I oversaw the decisions. I took the file. We walked through decision-making start to finish. He's got to own that.
So that is Starmer's personal involvement in all of this. Well,
the thing is, JJ, right, we can only judge him on what he said. He said this himself. When we had the paedophile ASBOs, we had his name on a document, right? And so we got like a bit of pushback in terms of, it's his name on a document. His name's... This is what he said. He told us he took the Rochdale file. He said with his own mouth, I walked through the decision-making process. That means you've got to own what you did to Amber and you've got to own what you did to Ruby.
So number 10, they fought you hard with the first investigation.
Yeah.
They were really pushing back against you.
Yeah.
You said, down that camera, I'm not going to stop. I'm going to keep on going. How have they responded now?
Well, I think what is incredibly telling was it was tumbleweed. It was silence. I had to chase them to actually give a comment on this.
Wow.
And it's kind of a bit of a pattern that you get with these things, right? Which is the initial thing is you go hard, you fight, you challenge, and then all of a sudden it goes quiet. And then all of a sudden they're also adopting. Actually, the thing that really stood out for me was that in the statement that Number 10 sent over, it used the phrase, "will leave no stone unturned." Why did that ring bells with me? Because it's the exact same phrase that Sadiq Khan used. What you've been doing before, when you were saying it was false and malicious, or when you're Starmer's team and you come and you're really aggressively pushing back on the story.
Yeah.
And then you're leaving no stone unturned. I'm sorry, lads, we're the ones that are leaving no stone unturned. You're the ones that would like to keep all that muck underneath and undisturbed.
Flipping heck, Zach. Well, mate, it's great work, but what does this all mean in terms of the big picture?
Well, we, as a nation, we've been grappling with this whole grooming gangs thing. It is one of the worst scandals because of the cover-up. I mean, it was horrific, the crimes that were going on. But if the people that should have been looking after these girls were actually tackling them, it wouldn't be the same level of scandal as what we're dealing with. The problem that we've had is that the girls were let down by the police. The girls were let down by the social services. That's what makes the scandal what it is. So, look, we've obviously got an inquiry. Who's making the decisions on that? I mean, Shabana Mahmood is ultimately the person that calls the shots. I wonder who her boss is.
Yeah. Well, what does this do for Starmer with the upcoming grooming gang inquiry?
Well, I think it's pretty simple. He has to take the stand. He has to be a witness. If he's saying, I did the first prosecution on this, and we found what we found, he needs to answer questions on it. He's not answered my questions.
Yeah.
I've gone over down to Number 10, shouted at him, doesn't reply to me.
Yeah.
So, if this inquiry is to have any shred of independence, their first witness that they would call is Sir Keir Starmer. And also, it's not just like that he should answer questions, he should be held accountable for it. You know what you'll like, we'll see it all in the comments below, right? Which is, they don't just want him to answer questions, they want accountability. I wonder also, because look, when he steps into Parliament, a lot of the time, he doesn't answer the question, does he?
Yeah.
Will it be different if it's in front of the inquiry? That would be, look, Anne Longfield, I know a lot of the survivors not happy with her. Yeah. She needs to gain some trust. I see how she gain some trust and show that she's not just going to be a yes woman. She calls Starmer first witness.
Well, I know what people who are watching and listening to this are going to say, but what do you think, Zach? If Starmer takes the stand, can he even be trusted?
I mean, well, look, it's not for me to say. I'll just present like what I know. Like, I'm not going to go out there and say the Prime Minister's a liar, whatever. That's for people to make up their own minds. What I would say, what I would push for, is for him to release his files, disclosure. We've seen one of the greatest acts of transparency has been the release of the Epstein files, right? Yeah. That we got an insight into that whole world. I think this grooming gang scandal that we have in this country and the powerful people that are involved in it, we need to release the grooming gang files. We need to release Starmer's grooming gang files. What he was saying at the CPS when he said, I took the file, give us all of that. I mean, do it in a way that protects the survivors, but he needs to release that for the public and let the public decide for themselves.
Release the files, Mr. Starmer. Release the files. Zach, this story goes back to last year when you were looking into grooming gangs in London. Any parallels between what you have seen there in Rochdale and now with the questions you're asking Sadiq Khan? Yeah,
well, in terms of like the defence tactic that I mentioned before, which is aggressively deny. I'll always go back to the fact that when we went to Sadiq Khan about grooming gangs in London, false, it was false, malicious and politically motivated. And then it was no stone unturned. He's never had accountability over that. And guess what? Who is also the person who is responsible for whether London has a look at it? Ding, 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 Sadiq Khan, right? So you've got Starmer. he's the person that's going, all right, let's have an inquiry or let's look into the grooming gang stuff. Guess what? There's questions about it, his involvement in it. Sadiq Khan, a man who has actively denied, actively gaslit the London victims, then is the person that is responsible for the transparency. And they're doing the exact same thing where whenever it comes up and they're like, we should have an inquiry into London grooming gangs, which we absolutely should, they go, oh, well, maybe we should look at all the different types of abuse. They straight away want to water it down. And actually, the other point I'll just make on Sadiq Khan, which was he went out there and he was talking about misinformation, right? And putting all of these, look, there's so much... Have a look inside your house, clean house first, mate. Because when we done the grooming gang story, when he did come out and speak about grooming gangs, he said, oh, there's been nothing like what happened in Rochdale and those northern towns. Guess what? The BBC found it out a couple of months later. Yeah. So where's the disinformation coming from?
Yeah. Honestly, Zach, I'm flabbergasted. I'm appalled, but at the same time, I'm not quite surprised about it. But this story runs deep. But I want more. What more have you got coming up?
I mean, look, we are not going to stop, right? We owe it to, number one, the survivors who've not had a voice, who've been made to feel invisible, who powerful men have sought to silence. And then we also owe it to, the British public and our audience that they are demanding us. We got to keep going. So, I mean, look, I can't say specifically what we have now or might get in the future, but we will keep digging on this. And, Starmer needs to be held to account. Sadiq Khan needs to be held to account. All the other people. And you know what? Those aren't the only, the other cities where there are scandals that we just don't know about. Somewhere like Birmingham, there is, we know of a massive kind of, it was basically like a kind of, me and my colleague Callum were talking about it, they kind of did like a massive paedophile ASBO for a huge group, right? But it had a bit more teeth. It was like a court order. So we know that there was activity there. Yeah. But has there been the scrutiny? Would there be the willingness of that local council? And I just think that is repeated over and over and over, and we just got to keep going with it.
Well, Zach, thank you for your diligent work. As always, this is a crusade that Daily Express are going to continue doing. Hopefully, we can continue being the voice for the voiceless. Thank you, Zach.
Oh, thanks for having me, Jojo.
Hopefully you enjoyed that episode of the Daily Expresso. Please leave your comments below, like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.